Question 17, we're asked to work out the mean number of points for the test that is taking place, all right? And the data has been given in a table. So when you work out the mean from a table, there's quite a bit of work to do, all right? You've got to be careful how you go about it. The whole point of having a table is so that the data is collected nicely. And we can use it then effectively to work out the mean. Now remember, when you work out the mean, you add up all the data, okay? You add it all up and then you divide by how many are there, all right? So, you know, first of all, if we think about how many pupils taken part here, well, you've got 25 pupils here, 65 pupils there, and 10 pupils there. We'd need to add them, wouldn't we? So 25, add 65, add 10. And if I add them up, I think it comes to 100. So 100 pupils took part in this test, okay? And of course, 100 pupils, each of them getting a mark, okay? And you can see the top grade, they got 3 points, middle grade 2 points, and then the lowest grade 1 point. Now, if you got 100 pupils with all of these scores, you know, you'd have to list them out potentially, right? And it would be a bit of a mess, okay? Because 100 pupils, each having a score, you know, if you've got 100 scores written out, it does get very messy and you could easily make mistakes. So that's why we've got a table here, okay? But essentially, we do need to add up the scores of all these 100 people. Because remember, the mean in this case, to get the mean score, we need to add up the scores, the sum of the scores, divide then by the number of pupils. Okay? The sum of the scores, well, there's quite a few of them, isn't there? Right, as I said. Now you've got 25 pupils here, each of them scoring 3 points. So, you know, had this been written out on a list, it would be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 25 times, okay? And it gets messy. But there's no need to actually do it that way, isn't there? Because if you think about it, if I had 3 written out 25 times, I could either add 3 together, 25 times, 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, or I could times, couldn't I? So I could actually times these values. I could say I've got 25 lots of 3, okay? So I could times them together. 25 lots of 3, of course, will make 75. So it's much easier to times, okay, rather than adding 3 25 times. It's much easier to times them, to say, look, I've got 25 lots of 3 points. So 25 times 3 will be 75. Going on to the next one, then we've got 65 pupils here. Okay, so now that's much more, isn't there? And each of them got 2 points. Now, had I written 2 points out, you know, 2, 65 times, again, chaos. Okay, but we don't need to think about it as in adding 2 65 times. We could just say we've got 65 lots of 2 and times them. So 65 times 2, and if you times that, 65 times 2 is 130. And then you've got 10 pupils there then who's just scored 1 point, right? So there's not many of them, but again, you know, if I was to list them out, I'd have to write 1 10 times, or 1 10 times. And that's easy enough to add up, isn't it? 10 lots of them. But again, I could times them, couldn't I? I could just say I've got 10 lots of 1, 10 times 1, which of course is 10. So when it comes then to working out the mean, you need to add these scores, yeah? 75 plus 130 plus then 10. And of course you divide by how many pupils took part, and 100 pupils. We've got 100 values which we've added together. And when I add that up, okay, 75 plus 130 is 205, yeah? 205, add 10 is 215. And then I'm going to divide by 100. Now dividing by 100 is really easy, because actually the digits stay the same, okay? Except they will move on the place value chart. And because it's 100 and we've got 2 zeros, they will move 2 places to the right. So the decimal point will shift, right? You can think of it that way, 2 places. Okay, or you can think of the numbers shifting to the right and getting two times, moving 2 times in effect. Okay, so then we've got our answer is 2.15. And you can always think about it logically. 215 divided by 100. It's about 2, isn't it? So that's where the decimal point needs to go.